Now, I'll switch back over briefly to the mayor side, because I have been on the dark side. I've been enlightened. The mayor is, as I say, the chief administrator. We don't have a city manager, so the mayor is really the one that is the director of how everything is to be sent out. But obviously, he works through his staff. We have, the mayor's office has a chief of staff, and that is the person that, I don't know if any of you have ever seen Madam Secretary, the television show about the Secretary of State. The President's Chief of Staff in that series is about just the most typical example of a Chief of Staff. Just nasty, gets things done, he's always on his phone, always. You're talking to him and he's always checking on something. And I gave the Chief of Staff when I was under Mayor Wisner, and then who continued on working with me, is Carrie Ann Ergo. And I often would say to her when we were wrestling over a problem or issue, and I said, well, just Carrie Ann, remember, you're no Russell Jackson. Okay, Carrie Ann was a really great person, and she would not do the things to the staff that Russell Jackson did to his staff. But the Chief of Staff plays an important part, because the mayor wants to be the good person, right? And you need somebody to be the bad person and get things done. And that's, the mayor's staff overall are very good people, and they're not bad people, but they're the ones that are expected to carry out and get these things done all the way down the line. The city structure is set up that we have, boy, I'm going to blank now without checking. I think we have at this point 12 or 13 separate departments, each having a department head. All the areas you had Chief Zeman speak to you this morning, we obviously have the police, we have fire, we have public works, public property, finance, so we go through the whole structure of the city. And the work is done, obviously, then through those departments, everything that gets accomplished. And the very first day that I was in at the office as mayor, they had a procedure, which still continues, that once a month, all of the department heads would meet with the mayor and the mayor's staff. And each department head, they had I don't know if they do it the same way, but they had a system where you would take the top 3, problem, program, good news, whatever you want to do as a department head, and you would cover those top 3. I'm walking into the office, and the first thing that I knew had been accomplished because I was now mayor is, I absolutely love donuts, and I want donuts available for any meeting. Okay, I'm not holding you to that here today. I understand bagels. Bagels are not high on my list, but that's okay. Donuts were available for the first meeting, so the staff had gotten prepped well enough to know that I love donuts. So that was a good start. We came into the room, there were the 15 department heads, and top 3, that's 45 things. And it's not like I fell off the turnip truck, as they say, but I had never had such involvement with so many different areas. And so I'm taking notes, and you know, I'm done that day with, I think, 6 pages of notes in regard to various things. And that just shows you, even on our level, what the challenge is in regard to government. Because you understand, you think sometimes people react to, well, why can't you get these things done? You know, it's easy to do, right? Just get it done. There are so many complications, there are so many different ways of getting involved in regard to it, that really was just a mind opener for me in regard to that 45 that all of a sudden I was facing. The real challenge came the month later when we had the meeting again, that I could remember what the person said the first time, because I'm looking at my notes, because I want to keep them on task, or I want to make sure that we're following through on things. And it was funny because the very first meeting, I believe the fire chief was on my left, and so just in the sequence, and I didn't know how it operated, Gary, his name, Gary Krenitz, Gary, you start. And Gary said, well, they never start with the fire chief. You know, like, what have I got to say? What am I going to say now? So anyway, we go around the room. The next meeting, I noticed the fire chief had sat over on the other side. So, and I gave him a hard time about that. I said, Gary, I had a call on you first. No, you always go to the left. And so, and it was interesting because you do want to stay on track in regard to what's going on with these departments. That's your job. And so I would be looking at these notes and I'd be hearing what they're reporting, and so it would give me an opportunity to say, what about that program that you talked about last month? You know, where's that at this point? Because they hadn't brought it up again. And that would not necessarily be anything that you would solve in that setting, but I'd immediately turn to my staff members and say, okay, we need to follow up on this. We need to get something going on this. And I can give you 2 or 3 instances. I won't be specific as to the departments, but that happened a couple times where nothing was going on, and so we had to push a little bit. We had to get things going in order to that program so that it could get off the ground. And again, I would turn to, in this case of this one program member, the chief of staff, and I just said, you need to sit down with that department head and we need to get going on that. So that's a structure that has continued, I believe, and I think it's a very solid, sound structure as to the way to follow everything, because otherwise the mayor is sitting up in that, as they sometimes refer to as the ivory tower, and you have no comprehension of what's going on in regard to the city. You make an effort, as I did as mayor, in the brief time that I could do it, and I know Mayor Irvin has done it, you make an effort to get out to all of the departments. You make an effort to go to the place where things are happening so you see what they're going through and what the problems are in regard to this. And that is about the only way, as far as I'm concerned, that you can manage effective leadership in regard to knowing who your people are, knowing what the problems are, knowing when they say, we've got a problem here and I don't have any idea what they're talking about, then I'm out there to see what that problem is. So my situation was that I just didn't have enough time in order to cover everything, but it was, for the time that I had, it was very, very productive in order to see the operations of the city and see how things are going. Every mayor has done, and I did, will do a ride-along with police officers, which if you want to have an open eyes of the world, do that. I've gone also with Public Works people in regard to their projects and following what they're doing, as long as they don't hand me the shovel and the hard hack and you know, to get in to do it. But the ride-arounds, for instance, as I say, is a very, very enlightening situation. I remember one time when I did it, it was a domestic relations problem call. So there were actually 3 squad cars there, and I was riding with the sergeant. The sergeant on those kinds of calls has to go to also respond. And so we're into the house. The police officers are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They're separating the husband and the wife. The wife is in one room. They're talking to her. The husband's in the other room. They're trying to understand what went on and so forth. The sergeant's saying, so, Bob, you want to step in and have anything to do with it? I said, are you kidding me? You know, you have a great admiration for particularly police officers who have to step into those situations instantaneously and use all of their training, use all of their knowledge, use the absolute common sense in the world on how to diffuse that situation, how to get it going in the right direction. So if you don't, as a mayor, have an opportunity to understand what the people that you're working with in the city, how they handle their jobs, and what we can do to do better or help them or improve the work, again, that's not leadership as far as I'm concerned. So the whole experience on the other side was a wonderful opportunity for me in order to see how things work and how we can get them to work better, hopefully. Now, I see time is moving on here quickly, and guess what? I've been talking on forever, and I'm sorry about that, but real quickly, the great experience that I had also in the city was serving for 10 years on the board of directors of the library. Wonderful place to be, just with what you do and what you offer to the community and how you can bring learning, bring experience, bring knowledge in such myriad ways. It was just wonderful for me to be able to work with that. I enjoyed tremendously my experience. I do tell the one story. The woman who sat on my right at the board in the old building, in the boardroom, was Carol Remisong, who served on the board for many, many years. Carol would always laugh at my jokes, which is a good thing. Okay, so we'd always kind of chuckle about things, and it was a very, very nice board working together. Everybody got along very well. When I went over to the city council, I had to resign from the library board. And I went over to the city council, and the first few meetings that I was there, you know, you're trying to get to know everybody, you don't know people. My style is I try to tell jokes, I try to enter into some discussion and a light side and so forth. Nobody ever laughed at my jokes because it's so serious. They don't know what you mean. And that happens in committee settings when I'm dealing with staff members. I will make jokes, and for the first 8, 10 meetings, nobody was reacting because they were very concerned that the alderman would get really upset, you know, if you didn't understand what I was saying and so forth. But that's a way for me to get through these meetings and to handle all these problems. And so now everybody understands a little bit better as to what I'm saying. And I went back and I told Carol, I said, boy, they just don't laugh at my jokes. So can I get together with you once in a while so I can test some of them? So the service on the library board was excellent. Several things that I took away from it, and as it relates to you today. My belief was that the library board as it's set up, or the library as it's set up, is an independent entity. And we in the city council should not dictate what the library does. That's the way the statute is laid out as to the independence of the library. Because we fought issues when I was on the library board with the city about doing different things, and we tried to maintain our independence, and we did. The city is tied closely with you because of the financial things and because of the human resources and some of the other aspects. But I still believe deeply in the independence of the library as a separate entity. Flip, a couple of years ago when I know that you're going through some real intense discussions in regard to change of staff and hours and a lot of issues that are out there. And I know I had many people contact me about what is the city going to do about this. And I tried to be as straightforward as I could in regard to saying, I believed in that independence before. I don't believe that the city can dictate to the library as to what they're going to do. And so I urge, you know, whatever I can do as an alderman to work with the library in regard to resolving issues in the long run and trying to do the best we can. I will do that, and I tried to do that in several different ways. But the fact remained that I think that that independence is important from the library. You know, you have read multiple stories about city councils raising issues about content of books, and boy, that's like fingernails on a blackboard as far as I'm concerned. I don't think we should have anything to say about it. And we've had speakers come forward to the city council complaining about books that they've gotten from the library. I've tried to handle that in the response that, again, you know, this is something that you have to take up with the board of directors or the director of the library. So that I feel that that independence is very important for you to be able to do your mission, which in many ways is entirely different from many of the missions of the city in other areas, because you're dealing with something very specific in regard to the services that you provide. So that was a lesson that I felt I had to carry over from when I left the library board, and I think it's important for that to continue. So, but I will also say we were just thrilled with all of the plans coming forward and trying to make changes in regard to the library, the building itself, and the time to move on in regard to the services that we could provide that were not capable of being provided out of the old library building, as much as I loved that building because of all the time that I spent there. But the ability to expand services, to be more comprehensive, to offer so much more to our citizens, and to keep moving forward in a very difficult age in regard to technology and what still goes on in regard to acquisitions and so forth. So that I think we have a phenomenal library, and I want to see it just keep going and improving and standing out in the library communities as to one that has so much to offer and has done such a good job. So.